Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, February 4th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-kyan. Before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. President Moon Jae-in and new U.S. President Joe Biden held their very first phone talks this morning since Biden took office. The two discussed issues related to the Korean Peninsula and reaffirmed their commitment to their alliance. The COVAX facility announced its interim distribution forecast, saying 337 million doses will be delivered to 145 countries by the end of the first half of this year. This includes at least 2.7 million doses for South Korea and 2 million for North Korea. And South Korea is to make more than 800,000 homes available nationwide by 2025, the largest amount proposed by the Moon administration so far. Our starting point this morning, the first phone call between President Moon Jae-in and U.S. President Joe Biden since Biden took office 2 weeks ago. The two leaders are expected to have discussed Korean Peninsula issues and reaffirmed their commitment to the alliance. For more, our senior Blue House correspondent Kim Min-ji joins us on the line for us. Min-ji, fill us in.
Morgan, the phone call took place this morning at 8 a.m. Korea time, which is 6 p.m. Wednesday in Washington. The call comes 2 weeks since Biden was sworn in office on January 20th. Now, we're still waiting for the details, but the leaders are expected to have discussed ways to strengthen the bilateral alliance and work together for peace and denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. Following the talks, Moon tweeted that he had a great conversation with Biden and that they agreed to further upgrade the South Korea-U.S. alliance, calling it an alliance that is anchored in shared values. He said that the two sides will stand together while working for peace on the Korean Peninsula and tackling global challenges. Now, the two leaders also spoke on the phone in November, just days after Biden was projected to have won the U.S. presidential election. Back then, they agreed to cooperate closely to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue, while Biden calls Seoul a linchpin of security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, since taking office, Biden has held phone talks with several world leaders, including the heads of Canada, Mexico, Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and Japan. Back to you, Morgan.
Thank you for the report, Min-ji. Please keep us updated. Now, on the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea, the country reported 451 new cases Thursday, staying in the mid-400s. Of the new cases, 429 were locally transmitted and 22 were from overseas. This brings the nation's total number of cases to just under 80,000. Meanwhile, with local transmissions of COVID-19 variants reported in the country, Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun called for the government to swiftly investigate people with any slight possibility of contacting infected patients, stressing the importance of preventing the spread of the more transmissible strains. The COVAX facility has announced its vaccine distribution plans for the first half of this year, which includes at least 2.7 million doses for South Korea and 2 million for North Korea. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The International Vaccine Project, known as the COVAX facility, on Wednesday announced its interim distribution forecast, saying the 337 million doses will be delivered to 145 countries by the end of the first half of 2021. This means 3.3% of the entire world's population will be able to be vaccinated.
This first indicative distribution covers 240 million doses of the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine licensed to the Serum Institute of India. It also covers 96 million doses of the same vaccine secured under an advanced purchase agreement signed directly between Gavi and AstraZeneca in December.
The report has noted that the initial batch of the first half should be enough to protect the most vulnerable groups, such as health workers, especially in countries that face difficulties obtaining vaccines. Among the 337 million doses, 100 million doses are expected to be delivered by the end of March. Among the vaccines to be distributed, almost all will be from the AstraZeneca Oxford University, while Pfizer-BioNTech will contribute 1.2 million doses of its vaccines in the first quarter. However, concerns remain that the extremely cold conditions it must be kept in will mean challenges in supply for poorer nations. During the distribution process, South Korea is expected to receive at least 2.7 million doses, or enough to vaccinate over 1.3 million people. Among them, over 2.5 million doses will be AstraZeneca's, being produced by SK Bioscience, and 117,000 doses of Pfizer's vaccine. The report also noted that North Korea is expected to receive about 2 million doses. North Korea is one of 92 low-income countries receiving vaccines with funds donated by advanced countries. The COVAX's interim plan did not include advanced countries, including the U.S., China, and Japan. It hopes to distribute at least 2 billion doses within this year. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In the largest amount pledged by the Moon administration so far, South Korea will build more than 800,000 new housing units across the country by 2025. As we speak, the Minister of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, Byun Chang-hum, is unveiling the plan dubbed Public-Led 3080 Plus. Of the new homes provided, 300,000 will be in Seoul. Combined with the third stage of South Korea's New Town Development Plan, the government will construct more than 2 million homes. The measures are focused on 5 principles, including providing sufficient housing and quality infrastructure, particularly in areas near subway stations. Following a severe order drought early last year, South Korean shipbuilders are off to a good start in 2021. According to local shipbuilding industry insiders, Hyundai Heavy Industries Corporation secured orders for a total of 14 ships just this month, worth $1.4 billion. That's around triple the $0.4 billion recorded last January. Samsung Heavy Industries Corporation also sealed 2 new contracts last month, including one for an LNG carrier. Forecasting a much brighter outlook for the year, analysts point to regulations introduced by the EU's emissions trading system to combat climate change for the rising tide of demand. South Korea was hit with a record high number of import restrictions in 2020 as nations put strengthened measures in place to support their pandemic-hit economies. According to the country's trade agency, the situation is unlikely to improve this year. Our Choi Min-jung has more.
South Korea faced the largest amount of import restrictions in 2020 as countries around the world scrambled to protect their economies amid the COVID-19 pandemic. A total of 228 import regulations from 26 different countries were imposed on South Korea last year, up 18 from the year before. This is according to the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency's report on import regulation trends published on Monday. The import restrictions include anti-dumping tariffs, countervailing duties, and safeguard measures. Anti-dumping duties accounted for 72% of the total restrictions, with 164 cases. Cases for safeguard and countervailing measures accounted for 24% and 4% respectively. By country, the United States enforced the most import curbs with 46 cases. This was followed by India, China, Turkey, and Canada. 66% of the restrictions placed on South Korean goods were newly imposed by countries such as India, the Philippines, and Thailand. Product-wise, limits on steel, metal, and chemicals accounted for more than 2/3. The rest included curbs on plastic, rubber, textiles, as well as electronic goods. The report also says South Korea will be further hit by heightened trade barriers this year as countries seek to impose carbon border tariffs in a bid to become leaders in the green and digital economy. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
2 days after the Myanmar military seized power in what the U.S. called a coup, it has issued the first formal charges against Aung San Suu Kyi. Myanmar's de facto civilian leader was accused of illegally importing and using walkie-talkies. This extends her custody to February 15th. There are suspicions the allegations are political, just a means to justify her detention. The charge carries a maximum sentence of 3 years in prison. The UN and world leaders have condemned the move and called for her immediate release. After a little under 2 years, the National Museum of Korea has finally completed its World Arts Gallery, aiming to give visitors the chance to compare Korean culture with certain aspects of other cultures from around the globe. Our arts and culture correspondent Kim Bo-kyung went there to take a look.
The 6 sections of the newly completed World Arts Gallery take visitors on a trip around the globe. The artifacts from ancient Egypt, which are displayed thanks to cooperation from the Brooklyn Museum in New York, show the history and myths from the time of the pharaohs, as well as their most important ritual, the mummification process. The Egypt Gallery was completed in 2019 along with 3 other galleries on Central Asia, China, and India and Southeast Asia, which show those regions' unique cultural artifacts such as Gandhara art. The very next year, the Japan Gallery opened its doors, focusing on the samurai.
The samurai had a great influence on Japan for around 700 years, as the samurai class greatly contributed to the development of Japanese history and culture. We thought understanding it would help us better understand Japan.
Visitors are attracted to the symbol of the samurai class, the armor and sword. But samurai culture also shows itself in other areas such as Do, mask theater which was performed at official events or celebrations, and the practice of drinking tea in a humble room with clay-pasted walls as opposed to the extravagant tea ceremonies of Japan's elite.
The newest section of the exhibition is the World Ceramics Gallery. It uses ceramics to show exchanges between the East and the West. The gallery includes Eastern porcelain that was traded to Europe and early-stage European porcelain, all borrowed from Dutch museums.
As European sailors arrived in Asia from the 16th century onwards, they were enticed by Chinese porcelain and fiercely began to collect them, with the Dutch East India Company being a major importer of the porcelain. Eventually, the Europeans started developing their own advanced pottery, such as Delft earthenware from the Netherlands, leading to the birth of Meissen porcelain, the first porcelain in Europe.
Those who visit the museum to look at Korean history could also take a look at the World Arts Gallery and compare how Buddhism and porcelain differed in each region, such as Korea, China, Japan, and for some things in Europe too.
Those wanting to visit the museum should make a reservation online. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The film Minari is competing for Best Foreign Language Film at the Golden Globe Awards this year. The nomination, however, has sparked controversy in some circles as the film has been categorized as a foreign language film despite it being an American-produced movie by an American director. Our Kim Hyo-sun has more.
The film Minari, which portrays the life of a South Korean immigrant family in the U.S., has been nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at this year's Golden Globes. According to the Hollywood Foreign Press Association on Wednesday, the semi-autobiographical story about the Korean-American director Lee Isaac-chung will compete for Best Motion Picture in Foreign Language alongside other films like Denmark's Another Round and The Life Ahead from Italy. Yet Minari was not nominated in other categories such as Best Supporting Actress and Best Screenplay. Minari describes the story of a first-generation immigrants from Korea in pursuit of their own American dream from the point of view of a 7-year-old boy and his parents. It has garnered attention among American film critics, securing numerous trophies from film festivals and critics associations. It has also been at the center of controversy in the U.S., as it has been categorized as a foreign language film, despite the fact that it's an American-produced movie written and directed by an American director. The HFPA, however, said that it was not eligible for Best Picture as most of the film's dialogue is in Korean. South Korea's Oscar-winning sensation Parasite won the prize for Best Foreign Language Film at last year's Golden Globe Awards. The winners of the Golden Globes will be announced during a live-streamed ceremony on February 28th. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Good morning. Central regions woke up to piles upon piles of snow along with freezing temperatures, so we'll need to drive and walk with extra care. But the cold wave should ease tomorrow afternoon, and we can even look forward to early spring weather by the weekend. This afternoon, though, highs will be slightly lower than yesterday. Seoul getting up to 1 degree, Daegu, Gyeongju topping out at 6 degrees Celsius. But we'll have plenty of sunshine to dominate the day. Regions in the west and Jeju, however, will see high levels of dust, while a dry weather advisory is in place across the east coast along with strong gusts today, so please be careful with fire. Temperatures will continue to bounce up and down. Lows early next will drop down to the freezing side again. While we can expect some sunny skies in the capital, Jeju will see light snow and rain on Friday afternoon. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's a wrap for us at the hour on Arirang News. We'll be back with more of the day's headlines at noon.